Hello everyone, my name is Lowko, and it is time for another best of 3 series of professional StarCraft 2. What I got for you today is a Zerg versus Protoss, where in game number 1 on map 1, we are starting off on Ascension to Aiur LE. Spawning here in the southeast corner and playing with the red Zerg drones, we have none other than Bly. And his opponent spawning in a cross position and playing with the blue Protoss probes, we have Team Liquid's MaNa. Now, both of these guys have been around for years and years and years. They have been professional gamers for an extended period of time, and I think that does mean that we can indeed expect quite a little bit of mind gaming here between these two guys as well. Obviously, they will be facing off against each other very regularly in both offline as well as online tournaments. So I wonder if that means that there may be some mind games here at play as well. Regardless, though, Bly is gonna be opening up with that hatchery first. No cheeky shenanigans just yet, and the reason why we see MaNa scout so very early, right after the probe put down the pylon here on the low ground, is because Bly is very well known for very cheeky builds. I mean, he's the kind of guy that will open up with a 12 pool. He's the kind of guy that will very quickly take a golden expansion. He will be Ravager rushing you. He is not afraid to Banelink bust you, and he likes playing a hyper-aggressive style. But what makes Bly so very scary is that he is also perfectly capable of playing a macro-focused game. MaNa, on the other hand, I mean, he's definitely also one of those guys that can do counterattacks and timing attacks and whatnot, but usually he does focus on a lot of macro-focused strategies, and that is what I've really been seeing him play the most. He likes playing that defensive Protoss style recently, where he just simply sits back, defends pretty much everything, and while he will do a little bit of pressure here and there, he is not the kind of guy that really goes for like an 8-gate Adept kind of push, unless he really wants to, of course. He can still go ahead and pull that off, but most of the time, he will win his games in the long run. With, for example, Archon Immortal. I believe that he's been playing a bunch of Colossus recently as well, which of course are very powerful right now against the Hydra Link Bane style that Zerg players have been favoring. But so far, no weird shenanigans just yet here from either of these players, just simply focusing on the good old standard. And the standard, of course, is the standard for a reason. I see a bunch of people asking, hey, how do you know what the standard build is in all of the matchups right now? The fact of the matter is that the standard usually isn't necessarily one go-to build order, but it's more or less like a standard strategy that players will go ahead and execute. So for example, the standard right now for Zerg is to pull 2 drones out of gas after metabolic boost. Some will be favoring the Pneumatized Carapace first, just so they can do a little bit more Overlord scouting, but the standard would be a quick 3rd hatchery here for the Zerg player. The standard for the Protoss right now would be to try and transition towards a 3rd Nexus as well, while still pressuring the Zerg just a little bit. You can go ahead and do so with, for example, Archon drops with, for example, Dark Templar play, but most common, we will be seeing that Stargate pressure as well. The nice thing about all of these little bits and pieces, like for example, indeed the Stargate play, is that if the Zerg player doesn't respond properly, it can actually win the game. Interestingly enough, though, we don't see an Oracle, but this time around it's going to be straight into a Phoenix, and right now Bly will be aware of this as well. It's kind of funny though, because the standard does indeed develop over time, and while we do see a handful of Zerglings trying to nibble away here for just a little bit of time, the Adept does pick up 2 kills there in total, and that means that I think that for now, MaNa is going to be defended here in the earlier part of the game. Now, of course, the nice thing about opening up with a Phoenix is that you can indeed deny all of those Overlords. Like I mentioned, we did see the 2 drones pulled out of the gas here for Bly, so there's not going to be an Overlord speed here anytime soon, and that means that all of the Overlords that are out on the map are indeed a little bit vulnerable, because this Phoenix that we see flying around here, it's going to start hunting. It's going to try and see if it can find any kind of Overlords, and indeed, of course, MaNa knows very well where Overlords are more than likely going to be scurrying away to, as he does pick up another one right here that's looking out for the 3rd base. And while there's a lot of variety in the so-called standard, a lot of people are indeed just simply getting to the same mid-game as they will in most scenarios. Even though the early game may not necessarily be the exact same, we will pretty much always see Zerg players trying to build up to 70 workers, while the Protoss is slowly transitioning towards that 3rd hatchery here as well. A lot of Zerglings already coming out right now though for Bly. Maybe he's realizing that there's indeed gonna be a 3rd base going down right at this point in time, and it does look like MaNa is planning to get that Nexus going here very early. We now also do see an Oracle follow-up, so this one is going to be flying across the map here for a little bit of time, although I'm assuming that there's going to be more than enough here to defend. Look at that, already a handful of queens. 6 queens here in total, ready to defend against everything, and of course it takes 2 to properly ward away an Oracle. And I think right now MaNa must realize as well that there's really no angle that he can find, but it's more or less players testing the waters. You know, if Bly would have skipped out on those additional queens, or if he would have gotten the fort base just a little bit faster, this Oracle could have gone in, this one right here, and it could have actually killed like 9 workers in just a matter of seconds. That's kind of the amount of workers that you see Oracles get every once in a while. And it's kind of funny because both players are playing these really cheeky little builds where they're trying out to test the waters for a little while, but more often than not, at the very least at the highest level of play, we will see them transition towards a very standard mid game. MaNa, however, while he's already getting that third Nexus right now, he is gonna go for a big shade forward here with a handful of Adepts. Resonating Glaives is just about to finish up. Zerglings, however, were left behind and are currently target firing down that Nexus. The Oracle is now going to start dealing a little bit of damage to them as well, and apparently it's not quite enough. Queens are going to be very helpful here. There are no Banelings to be seen anywhere just yet, and that does mean that Bly can be in a little bit of trouble. Zerglings are now going to be following all of these shades towards that main base. Great surround so far, though, picking up a whole bunch of these units quite comfortably. But of course, Resonating Glaives is extremely powerful, as all of a sudden, these Adepts are starting to pick up kills. 7 workers fall in just a matter of seconds. But the question is that enough to justify sending all of these units over to the other side of the map? 7 workers by like the 4-minute mark is definitely a big deal. Right at this point in time, look at that. We already see 11 drones coming out at every single moment that goes by right now, and Bly even secured himself a 4th base while this was all going on. So sure, losing 7 workers is a pretty decent loss, but MaNa of course also lost a handful of Adepts to that shenanigans too. But here's where we are once again at the standard, right? Both players are trying to macro up more and more units, and both players have indeed secured themselves a whole lot of bases here too. It's kind of funny though. So the standard isn't necessarily like one go-to build order, it's just simply the mid-game that we will see players transition to in the vast majority of the games. A handful of Zerglings now, however, starting to deal a little bit of damage here as well. That single shield battery helping out a ton. Of course, recently we did see the removal of the Mothership Core. It changed up the mid-game and the early game quite a bit of Zerg versus Protoss, but I gotta say, I really like the way it's already being played out right now. A lot of players have gotten way better at using these things efficiently. Look at this, right? That single Adept is gonna be able to kill Zerglings there for days, but if you get enough burst damage, like for example with Banelings, or for example Ultras, or you just simply get enough units, like for example Hydralisks, you can still kill a unit before it can actually be fully healed up by a shield battery. So it's a rather interesting building that's actually got a lot more nuances to it than we originally anticipated. Right now, though, it is out of energy after these Zerglings nibbled away for a little while at the probes, and apparently that does mean that at the very least a couple of these units will end up dying. Now, a handful of Banelings also trying to get morphed in. Interesting little move. There's already a little bit of a wall, so we have to keep an eye out on exactly what it is the Zerg player is going to be able to do there. MaNa now moving across the map also with 2 Archons. Apparently though, oh man, this is not going to do anything, is it? It's a nice little move. It's a nice little move. A small little commitment. Now, right when the Zerg, though, was trying to make a bit of a move here across the map as well with these Zerglings, all of a sudden, the Archons and then also now the Zealots are joining in this party. There's no charge on these units just yet, and the Queens, of course, will need to try and target fire down to the best of their abilities on top of that Warp Prism, but so far, great pickup by the Protoss player, not really losing any units here unnecessarily, and while, of course, he's forcing a lot of units here out of the Zerg player at this point in the game, he is at the very least going to be able to evacuate on out of there with both of the Archons alive. And once again, right, it's testing the waters. It's making sure that Zerg doesn't just get up to, you know, like 75, 80-ish workers right from the get-go without making any without making any units. It's a smart little play that doesn't really cost MaNa anything, and it's gonna keep the Zerg player here on his toes. I mean, these Zerglings were planning to move across the map about a minute earlier. Right now, all of a sudden, it will be met with a lot more opposition. And speaking of which, we now do see the High Templar also coming out. If I'm not mistaken, yes, Psionic Storm is already done, so that means that these links are gonna be in a world of hurt if a storm does land right on top of them. And now also do see the transition from MaNa towards that Archon Immortal style, and it's very, very powerful, in particular against Zerg players right now. Zerg players have been transitioning a lot more to Lurkers, in particular, against, like, for example, Colossus-based play. Look at that nice little pickup there. I love it. Whew. Both of these Archons already picking up a whole lot of kills each, and of course they're just simply going to regenerate their shields, right? Very well done right there by the Protoss player. But we have seen Zerg players playing a lot more lurker-based play. We've also been seeing Zerg players transition towards a hive fast, just to try and, or like to transition towards a hive really quickly, just to try and get themselves that Brood Lord army out as early as they possibly can. And while Zerg is currently posturing to make a bit of a move forward there's not that many Zerglings here to defend against that. And I think that he wants to just simply back off and indeed get himself up to that hive tech and also go for the Spire. So this indicates that Bly is indeed anticipating a late game kind of switch that's gonna be necessary here. The Archon Immortal Ball with all of the Zealots and the High Templar are just simply going to be too powerful, and I don't know if Bly really wants to commit here anywhere. He does have 34 Zerglings right now on that production tab. +1 attack is already done for him. Not a whole lot of upgrades though coming in right now, only just starting up the +2 melee upgrades. The same can really be said, though, for the Protoss. I mean, that Fort Nexus is now secured. There's just simply so many High Templar, though. Great positioning here by MaNa. Definitely not overextending any of his units here whatsoever. And with a single storm, forcing a couple of these Hydras to get split off. I think he's just making sure that he, you know, does not get to fight here close to the Zergs. And I mean, look at this, right? I mean, essentially what's going on right now, MaNa is shooing his opponent away from his own lawn. I mean, there's a whole bunch of these stasis wards available. A single Zealot is going to walk down this ramp, will sacrifice his life for ire, and I wonder if this will trigger some of these units to start moving to the other side as well. There is a lot of Zerg here available, however, but with a beautiful Storm and Stasis ward, they take so much damage there in just a matter of seconds. And of course, now with these shield batteries here near the front, I think that MaNa must be feeling pretty confident. Handful of Banelings now, however, once again being morphed in. There's also a couple of High Templars still trying to deal some damage, and while the Zerg is posturing back and forth, I wonder if these Banelings are finally going to be able to pick up a couple of kills, and there we go. 9 probes fall in just a matter of seconds, but Zerg is still smelling blood. We now also do see the carrier switch here from the Protoss player. He's already getting more and more High Templar to morph into Archons. Fleet Beacon is done. We have now 3 Stargates here in total, and Zerg in the meantime is also getting up to that Greater Spire. So game number 1 here is already starting to be a very late game focused game here, because neither player is really committing to a big push, and while Protoss finally is acting a little bit ballsy here out on the map because he wants to take another expansion, these storms are just simply, look at that, these storms are just simply keeping the Zerg player at bay. I mean, it's not for lack of trying, right? Zerg has been desperately trying to deal a little bit of damage here and there. I mean, just like we saw the 7 drones going down earlier, 9 probes is nice, but it's by no means game ending 12 minutes into the game. Players are going to be able to remake that very, very rapidly. I don't know if Bly currently knows. No, he doesn't. Well, maybe. No. He doesn't know about the carrier switch just yet. So that does mean, of course, that these corruptors are primarily meant to just be switched into Broodlords as well. But right now, though, we have a massive army here for both of these players. MaNa just simply transitioning to watch a 5th Nexus, playing it very safe, playing it very steady, but with 9 Broodlords coming in. I wonder how MaNa is going to respond to this. I mean, isn't he just simply going to make more and more carriers and just max out on those units? Isn't that kind of his go-to right now? As a Zerg player by heart as well, and I play a lot of random these days, but I do still really like Zerg myself, I'm always a little bit worried whenever Protoss gets to max out and they get to have 5 bases up and running. 5 bases for Protoss is insane. Protoss is mostly limited by gas, so the more gas they can get and the more powerful their army can become. The late game force that's super gas heavy with like Carrier, Archon, Sentries, High Templar, Immortals, like those kinds of units, right? The scarier that army can become, the more deadly it will become as well, and Zerg usually has a hard time responding to that. Now, speaking of which, though, Zerg is now responding by doing a bit of a push here towards that 4th base location. 6 probes do end up dying, and while Zerg is now also posturing here in the middle of the map, transitioning now towards Vipers, as well as more and more Corruptors, Bly wants to try and see if he can finally test the waters here with the main army of the Protoss player. And I think that MaNa is more than ready for this as well. 1 shield battery will be popped in just a second there. It will indeed end up dying. Corruptors now also trying to come in for the rescue so they can potentially pick up a couple of these carriers. Of course, Vipers are going to be very important at this point in the game as well, just simply having these Yanks. And while Bly indeed wanted to engage for a little while, once again, this Zealot Warpin is going to slow down the Zerg, and MaNa is replacing those units with more and more high-tech units. Like, look at that, right? He's replacing like 6, 7, 8 zealots there with more and more carriers, and that means that he's slowly building up that super gas-heavy focused force. And usually, as long as you're spending a lot of gas on your units as Protoss, you're gonna become very, very powerful in the later stages of the game. Now, Bly continuously trying to roll in with these banelings. He's picking up a lot of worker kills here and there, but here we go. It looks like we are finally setting up for the first major engagement 15 minutes into the game. Probes indeed did manage to walk away from that shenanigans, but at this point, I think that with the Corruptors kind of like caught off guard, I think they're going to be needed here in the main engagement. Protoss is going to try and bite just a little bit, and there we do indeed see 1 yank, 2 yanks here as well, already coming in. That does mean, I think, that 2 of these carriers will end up dying. Nice little move there by the Zerg player in red, but Protoss still has a massive economy to recuperate any of these losses with. Bly, though, still close to maxed out. He's got a lot of units here himself as well, picking up more and more bases, and he wants to try and break this position here in the center of the map. But I can't help but wonder that there's just simply too much Protoss right now, right? I mean, look at this. There's so many cannons at every single base. That means that MaNa is going to be able to defend his areas right now quite comfortably. I think that what Bly is trying to do here is just to simply pick up all of these reinforcing units right when they actually spawn. He knows that the carriers are coming out of the base, out of that main area. So if he can hang out over there, it's going to be very helpful. But hold that thought, because there's a big push right now moving towards the center of the map. Hydras are now available here as well. Corruptors are swinging in from the back. They're moving forward, trying to do as much damage as they possibly can. Storms, however, are landing on top of all of these Zerg units. And I think that Bly would just barely be able to clean all of this up. But Liquid Mana still has 147 supply here available as well. Bly wants to close out this game right here, right now. Look at the amount of Brute Lords morphing in. 9 here in total, and pure reinforcements with Hydralisk right now as well. Mana, however, still has a massive force. This is not game over just yet. Look at all of these reinforcing units picking up these overextending Hydralisks. Bly uses a ton of army supply right there in just a matter of seconds. Brute Lords are finishing up right now, but the Archons manage to get underneath. They pop in just a matter of seconds, and while Bly was trying to squeeze out a victory there, and I thought that he was very far ahead, all of a sudden these Brute Lords pop like they are flies. Such an unfortunate timing there for the Zerg player, but a brilliant move by MaNa, pushing forward right there, deep on the creep, and picking up these Brute Lords, 9 of them, and I think he actually killed 8 in just a matter of seconds there, very, very nicely. Such a ballsy move. He didn't know exactly where the Brute Lords were being morphed in, but the Archons, when they manage to get underneath Brute Lords or any unit that's clumped up, they deal so much damage, and they absolutely shut that down with ease. Liquid Mana, though, still has got a lot of supply here caught up as well, or tied up in a lot of these Stargates that are producing. I mean, the supply counts right now can be a little bit deceiving. Another base is now also being tried to get taken here by the Protoss player, but that is not going to happen. I think that Bly wants to continue pushing here. He's got 75 workers remaining and a pretty decent economy as well, but this is definitely not game over just yet. He did have a game-winning move there for just a second, but with some great pushing forward there, Protoss wormed himself way back into this game. And I think that the longer this goes on, right, we're getting to the point where the Golden Armada is being supported with a bunch of High Templar as well. It becomes really tricky to try and do any damage here if you are the Zerg player. Hydras now, however, once again fighting a handful of these Zealots. There's a lot of Banelings joining in this fight as well. And of course, if the Banelings manage to connect with the High Templar, they are gone in just a matter of seconds. Carriers now actually rally towards a bit of a different direction, but more and more are coming out. 3 by 3 right now, and I think that Zerg wants to continue engaging here, but there's a bunch of shield batteries, and shield batteries can deal a world of hurt in just a matter of seconds by just simply healing up all of these Protoss units as well. Great Storms going down, once again zoning these units. Target firing down as well on top of all of these Brute Lords. The carriers are dealing a lot of damage. Corruptors and Hydras, however, are now also target firing them down. MaNa is trying his best to hold on, and I think he's forcing the Zerg player here to retreat. Man, this game is turning out to be really sick. This game is turning out to be really good already. Crazy back and forth. Once again, I thought for a second there that Bly was going to be able to close that one out, but these shield batteries, I mean, all drained of their energies right now, are just simply keeping these Protoss units alive for an extended period of time. Corruptors once again trying to chase down the carriers, but the warped-in Stalkers will be able to shoo them away here, at the very least for the time being. And apparently, Bly is going to be switching towards the Ultralisks. Now, this may seem like a bit of a weird switch, and Ultras are indeed a little bit of a funny switch when your opponent is focusing on so many air-based units. But the idea behind them is that you can deal a lot of damage to all of the ground army units here of the Protoss player, like for example the Stalkers, and then the High Templar die in just a matter of seconds. Plus on top of that, when they have their armor upgrade, and I'm assuming he doesn't actually quite have it just yet. No, obviously, he can't actually get it yet. Anyway, the armor upgrades, in particular, now that the ground carapace level 1 is finishing up as well, just give the Ultralisk so much tanking potential against a lot of the interceptors. And since they're gonna be mostly in front of the rest of the Zerg units, they can actually eat a ton of that damage, because the interceptors essentially tickle away at them. But still, this is gonna be a very scary army to deal with. So many storms still available, and a whole lot of these carriers as well. I don't know if MaNa really wants to engage there. I'm actually quite surprised that he hasn't quite cleaned up the creep. I mean, the creep is getting very close. There we go. He's finally got that observer. I was going to say, like, doesn't he have an observer anymore to try and clean this one up? Because I think it's going to be very important. Hydras and Zerglings now, however, or at the very least Zerglings, are trying to make their way here towards this newly acquired expansion. Look at that. +3 attack Zerglings with Adrenal Glands. They kill stuff really fast, but at the meantime, and at the exact same moment here, in the center of the map, Protoss is smelling blood. He's trying to go for a push forward here. Broodlords are once again falling, and a lot of them have already gone down here at this point in the game. And I wonder what exactly the plan here for Bly is going to be. He's getting a lot of Ultras. He's getting a whole lot of Ultras. He's already got 3, he's getting 3 more. Adrenal Glands actually wasn't even done there yet, so you just saw the +3 attack Zerglings just nibbling away at that Nexus. The damage output of those units is insane. But since MaNa is focusing the majority of his efforts right now really smartly on a lot of these air-based units, right? And he's primarily switching towards more and more carriers, at the very least when he's got a little bit of time. And right now he's maxed out on an army that mostly flies. There's not a whole lot of units here that can actually shoot these army units down. I mean, we see a bunch of supply right now tied up in these Ultralisks. But Ultras, last time I checked, do not shoot up. This is going to be a very tough little engagement here for the Zerg player. Apparently, though, is this one dancing? What's that one doing? I have no clue. What was that one doing? That was so weird. I don't think he was dancing that manually, but regardless, here we go. Big push coming in. We do see the mass recall, however, forced, and that means that MaNa will be able to get his units back away in time once again. What was that one Ultra doing there? It was dancing. It looked fabulous, though. Not gonna lie. Anyway, I love the way that MaNa is playing this. Just simply defending what it is the Zerg player is throwing at him, and just transitioning towards this death ball based army. And while a lot of people will not necessarily like that very much, because it seems like he's just simply turtling, he's really not, though. Look at the amount of bases that he's got. He's been forced to hold off so many bits of aggression, and this is not an easy way of playing Protoss here whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I think it's one of the hardest ways to play Protoss, just because it takes so long to get to this point where you're actually able to max out. And right now that he's getting close to that exact moment, I mean, he's at 196 supply. Look at the amount of damage that he can still deal. That's so sick. That Ultra just died to Interceptors. I mean, Interceptors take a long time to kill an Ultra. He's got the Golden Armada ready to go, and I think that MaNa is planning to close out this game here as soon as he gets the right angle. Bly now desperately adding on more and more Corruptors, getting himself +2 ground carapace, also going up to more and more air weapon upgrades here too. Both players, though, have got a very menacing force, and depending on the micro, this can really go either way. The thing, however, is that MaNa's got a massive bank. He's got a massive bank. He's got a lot of units here that he can already start reinforcing with, and I mean, I don't know exactly the amount of gateways that he's got right now, but he does have a very scary army, and he can warp in 1 billion zealots in just a matter of seconds. I mean, this is going to be a very tough army to beat here if you are the Zerg player. Vipers are now also coming in. We even now see the upgrade here for the ranged of all of those units, but here we go. The Phoenixes are not even in the game anymore. High Templar gets surrounded, though, and that's a beautiful move here by the Zerg player, getting so much value by just simply killing those High Templar in a matter of seconds. Great catch there by the Zerg player in red. He's gonna go for the counterattack, because now all of these units are no longer capable of shooting up. 6 Corruptors are now coming in all at once. We see the carriers, however, harassing all of these bases. There's still so many defensive units here available as well, though, for the Protoss player. Just simply warping in defensive units instead, trying to make sure that the Zerg cannot go for this counterattack. And even though the High Templar fell in just a matter of seconds, and Bly ended up picking those units up with absolute absolute ease. He does not have enough at this point to kill these units here. I mean, the amount of damage that comes out right now, oh man. Great parasitic bomb though. He's going to be able to pick up at the very least 1 or 2 of these carriers, but I think that there's just simply a little bit too much Protoss here on his side of the map. The army supply counts are not lying. It's 116 versus only 38, and Bly, in a very tough game number 1, is forced to GG out. That must have been a pretty tough defeat there in game number 1 here for the Zerg player. I mean, I can't help but feel a little bit bad for him. When we first saw the big engagement going down in the middle of the map, right, and Zerg was just about to jump on top of the 5th base with those morphing in Brood Lords, there wasn't really any other way for the Protoss player to come back at that point, other than the Protoss catching all of the moving in, or the morphing in Brood Lords rather. And of course, MaNa knew that as well. He knew that he would be in trouble, and he knew that there was a good chance that more and more Brood Lords would be joining the map as well. And apparently he just simply decided to blink forward there, kind of into the darkness though, hoping that apparently Zerg was morphing in the broods right there at the watchtower. And right when he called all of those broods, I mean, Bly must have been, you know, he must have been rather upset with that, because he could have won the game if he morphed the Brood Lords in just a little bit of a safer location. Either way though, we're right here in game number 2, and Bly does indeed love these golden mineral patches. He really likes the gold bases on most of the maps, and right now MaNa will sniff out as well that something is not quite right. Seeing that there's nothing here for the Zerg player whatsoever, he knows that he's gonna go up against the gold base, and Bly is one of those players that likes playing a tricky style, which makes him a little bit unpredictable. I gotta hand it to MaNa as well though in that previous game. I mean, he played that very smartly. Just simply playing the late game, knowing that he would be very strong at that point, and I mean, he made ballsy moves when he needed to, right? He didn't take any unnecessary risks. He just simply made moves for the victory when he absolutely needed to. I mean, when he first got that army killed in the middle of the map and he knew that the Brood Lords would be coming up with the follow-up, he had to sort of blink forward right there in the darkness, and he had to go ahead and make a smart little choice. Regardless though, Bly is gonna start transitioning towards a gold base already at this point in the game. We're 2 minutes in, and the golden minerals will soon be harvested right here by the Zerg player. MaNa on the other end though, on the other side of the map, we do see him transitioning towards that very standard play. He's getting a pylon in a bit of a peculiar location. I wonder if that means that he's going to be getting himself like a Stargate or maybe something else here early on into this match. It does look like though, for now at the very least, he's going to allow the Zerg to start mining off of this gold base. And this is actually pretty scary, because Zerg can get so much value out of these golden minerals in just a matter of minutes. Of course, the golden minerals do return more resources for every little trip. So normally I believe it's 5 minerals, and right now the Zerg is going to be harvesting 7 for each and every one of these golden patches. Interestingly enough though, this is actually a full patch mineral base here, but oftentimes we do see golden bases that only have like 6 or sometimes even 4 mineral patches, and those are oftentimes not even worth taking, just because it doesn't necessarily give you that much more additional income. Bly, however, he's still going to be able to scout out roughly what it is he's going to go up against. He's seeing this pylon here in a weird angle, and he will find out that it is going to be a Twilight Council. Could be once again the Archon drop shenanigans, could be a couple of little bits and pieces. Nice Ras here actually, look at that. MaNa denying that expansion from coming up, and here we go. The Adept once again trying to be a bit of a nuisance, just killing all of these units in just a matter of seconds there, and oh, MaNa shuts it down absolutely brilliantly. A little bit of a skirmish once again, and apparently that Adept kills 5 units here in total. Queen is now also going to come in, however, and I think that this one may very well clean up what is left over of this unit. Oh, that is so dirty! MaNa! That is so sick. This is something we haven't really seen players do in such a long time. He's gonna push forward and still kill another drone! Man, that Adept died, but that was pretty much as good as you could be if you are, you know, an Adept. That is the best you can hope for. We see a lot of Adepts die, you know, without actually them doing anything. MaNa getting so much value right there, and just simply slowing down an expansion by probably what was like a good like 45 to 60 seconds. That was pretty menacing. Anyway, let's try and figure out what it is that Bly plans on doing here in game 2, because I mean, he's got that golden base, he's got a solid economy, he's going for the Roach Warren and right now the Lair as well. Bly, like I mentioned, right, he plays his own style. At this point, though, he does know that it is going to be more than likely that aggression here from the Protoss player. We actually do see him go for Resonating Glaives as well as the Dark Shrine. So MaNa is going for a bit of a mix between the two. Normally, we see Protoss players either commit to Resonating Glaives or the Dark Shrine. Right now, he's going for both off of 2 bases. So I do like this decision here as well from MaNa, to simply mixing it up here in game number 2, knowing that he's ahead. He can take a little bit of a risk and potentially close out the game early. So this is going to be more than likely a Dark Templar switch and maybe an Archon switch here in just a little bit, after this first War Prism makes its way across the map and does a bit of damage here with a handful of Adepts. Roaches, however, are already coming in, and I do like this decision here from Bly. Roaches are going to be good against everything. Against both of course, the Archons as well as all of these Adepts. It is true, however, that without Banelings, it can still be rather tricky here for the Zerg to actually deal with all of these units. And right now, he only finds out about this War Prism. This means that he's going to go up against a lot of units. Interesting little shade here, though, by the Protoss to just simply bypass that golden base here altogether and to head towards the natural expansion here instead. The Adepts will end up getting surrounded here, once again shading forward, trying to head towards that natural expansion, but there's absolutely nothing here for the Zerg whatsoever. Already rallied all of those drones away, knowing precisely what it is that the Protoss player was looking to get, but MaNa still gets a bunch of value, also warping in the defensive units right now at the gold base, so he's still going to be able to pick up quite a lot of drone kills. 6-7 workers here in total, and look at this, right? Even though it looked like Bly was all over this and that he was not going to take any damage whatsoever, in just a matter of seconds, 11 drones do end up dying to probably what was also about 11 Adepts or so, but that was still a nice little bit of harassment here by the Protoss player. The only issue, though, and right now we do see the Dark Templar coming out, the only issue here is that Protoss does not have a third base anywhere to be seen. We gotta keep that one in mind, because normally you see a third base here off of the back of this. And right now, actually, you see Bly looking for it as well. He's trying to figure out what it is he's going up against. Only just now sees it coming in. Dark Templar immediately picked up, but apparently the War Prism managed to evacuate 3 of them out of there once again. And right now, Bly realizes that he's going up against the 2-base Protoss. And I think he must be feeling pretty happy in this game so far, because he has got a pretty menacing economy, even after losing all of those drones here in the earlier part of the game. Supply-wise, we see significantly more supply here for the Zerg player. The Archons are going to once again be a little bit annoying, though. I like this move here from MaNa. The nice thing about Archons is that it just simply buys you so much time. It's hard for a Zerg player to move across the map, and here we go. MaNa showing us some brilliant juggling here in game number 1. Not losing any of those units earlier than he needed to whatsoever, and look at this. Once again, already starting to be a little bit of a nuisance. He may be able to kill 1 or 2 queens here. So far, though, the Roaches will indeed be able to pick up those units rather quickly as well. And while the Zerglings are trying to continue being annoying, the third base here eventually does get taken by our Protoss player. War Prism, however, still not done just yet. Bly is just about to mine out the gold base, but these units will be able to try and pick up a couple of drones in just a matter of seconds. Zerglings are actually now coming in as well for the reinforcements, so once again, Bly is forced to split up some of his units and to simply get on out of there, while he's trying to also go for a push here across the map. And MaNa is buying a lot of time. I love this, right? He's going for that Immortal Zealot Ball, which is great against, in particular, all of the units right now that are available here for the Zerg. Without Banelings, it's really tricky to deal with a massive amount of Zealots. Charge, however, is not done just yet. +1 melee, also not done just yet. So I think that this may be a great opportunity for Bly to deal a little bit of damage. And here we do indeed see the first big push here from the Zerg player, trying to target fire down all of these Immortals. Still, though, the Zealots are dealing so much damage, and now the shield batteries here in the back also keeping these units alive for an extended period of time. Bly, however, does have the numbers advantage right now, and once again, Corrosive Biles will indeed be able to pick up another one of those Immortals. We see Bly trying to pounce on his opponent right now, picking up all of these units to the best of his abilities. Zealots now do have charge, +1 melee is about to finish up. Bly, however, is reinforcing with more and more units, and I think once these reinforcements come in, because apparently the Archons were dealt with here on the other side of the map, I think indeed that it may just be a little bit too much for MaNa, and Bly picks up game number 2. Well, there we have it. This is going to be game 3 in this best of 3 series. So the winner of this match right here indeed will become the victor. Interestingly enough, we are currently on Battle on the Boardwalk. Now, recently at WESG, I actually asked Bly what he thought of this map, and he mentioned that he's actually one of the few Zerg players that really likes it. And I think that this may very well be due to the fact that there's a gold base. This one, for example, by the way, only has 6 mineral patches, not quite as valuable. And actually, is he sending... I love it. Bly is actually going to be sending out a drone already towards the bottom right hand corner of this map, and that means that he's once again planning to boost up his economy rather early on into this match. Most players will indeed be vetoing this map right now, at the very least Zerg players that is. Protoss is generally speaking like it as well though, because you can take this map, you know, you can take this base in the bottom left hand corner and just simply mass recall a lot of probes here. So you lose very little mining time if you are the Protoss player, and you can just continuously mine a lot of additional income. I mean, if you want to go for a big 2-base push, this map is perfectly viable for that. If you want to transition towards a third nexus here on the low ground, still a relatively easy position to defend just because it is nicely tucked away, and I think that MaNa will also be going here for the gold base, so we will indeed see some gold base versus gold base action here at this point in the game. I do like the way that MaNa is playing this series so far though, definitely playing it very safe. I mean, he's not taking any risks so far. I mean, game 2, the build was a little bit funny. It just simply got shut down there, and Bly didn't really take the damage that MaNa was hoping for. But I mean, he was 1-0 ahead. He had to try something. But he's sending out the probe every single time at, like, you know, second number 30 or so, right after this pylon goes down. Very safe scout there, not trying to take any risks. And actually, MaNa is going for the full wall layer at the front. This is a dead giveaway that indeed the nexus is going to be in the bottom left-hand corner of the map. Did I miss that? Oh no, I can't believe I missed that. Oh, that is so cool. All right, let me try and explain to you what happened real quick. When we saw that probe hovering in the main base and not actually confirming that there was a hatchery going down in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, MaNa was waiting for the drones to transfer there after he realized that there was no hatchery over there. At that point, he decided to set up a pylon right when he saw the drones pulled off the mineral line and heading towards the bottom right-hand corner, preventing them from ever getting there. I can't believe I missed that, but that is such a cool little move there by the Protoss player that just simply, once again, slows down the Zerg, and MaNa is showing us perfectly what he's capable of. He's gonna indeed be able to mass recall here with a lot of the probes from the main base towards the golden mineral patches in the bottom left-hand corner, and MaNa will be able to saturate that in just a matter of seconds. Income-wise, we will be seeing MaNa indeed skyrocket ahead here in just a little bit. There we go. The golden minerals are indeed kicking in. Always a nice little graph right there to see exactly what's going on. And even though MaNa is already ahead right now in the worker count, Bly apparently has decided to go for a bit of a Zergling drop. Waiting for a couple more reinforcements. Interestingly enough, he actually has got a very late Zergling speed coming in right now, it feels like. But the evolution chamber is already done, and that means that indeed Zerg is going to be able to drop off some links here inside of the golden area here of the Protoss player. A wall is currently going down here at the front. MaNa, though, once again showing us what he's capable of with the perfect shield battery timing. Shield battery is going to be enough to actually shut down all of these Zerglings, and apparently even though Bly is going for a push here with Lings before Link speed is even done, so very, very early move here, MaNa already has the wall in place. Shield battery is going to be finishing up here as well, and more than likely we will see a cannon follow-up in just a second. There we go, MaNa definitely playing this out smartly, forcing the Zerg player to actually continue playing macro, and apparently Bly may have hit a bit of a supply block there as well, because he was producing like 4 overlords there all at once. And while the Zerglings apparently are going to be capable of killing at the very least one of those gateways, and you know, the Adept will be able to nibble away at these units in the main for just a little while, once again we are arriving here at a mid-game that is rather standard. I wouldn't even be surprised here. And actually, apparently that wasn't quite a full wall off. I actually thought it was, but apparently he decided to put it one square or one hexagon down. Just to make sure that apparently it isn't going to be a full wall off. Regardless though, I wouldn't be surprised if MaNa decides to go for a push towards the third nexus here in just a little bit. We do once again see resonating glaives coming in. I love this though. A lot of Protoss players definitely showing their preferences. I've seen a lot of Protoss players opening up with Oracle play just like they used to in the previous patches of StarCraft. I've seen a lot of people going up to, for example, Archon drops very quickly. We do see a lot of Dark Templar play. But apparently MaNa, while he still likes to go for the Oracles as well as the Phoenixes, as well as of course the Archon drops. Apparently, he's really enjoying the Resonating Glaives upgrade here as well, and a heavy focus on Adepts. Really like that. I mean, players right now are able to more or less come up with their own little way of defending, rather than, you know, there just being one gold standard, right? There's a lot more variety right now. I appreciate it a ton. I think it's really cool. Anyway, third Nexus right now is coming in here for the Protoss player. Once again, we do see the +1 melee coming in here a little bit earlier than what we did see it in the previous games. And Zerg is currently trying to transition towards that Roach Warren and once again the Lair. I wonder if Bly is getting the Roach Warren as a response to seeing the quick Twilight Council. In this particular match, he didn't even see it. He may have just seen a handful of Adepts and realized exactly what it is he's going up against anyway. I mean, at this point in the game, there are 4 Adepts out already. I guess that if you see more than 2, you can sort of make the assumption that something fishy may be going on. But a lot of Zerg players, for example, have been favoring the Baneling Nest instead. Just going for the Baneling Nest, generally speaking, seems to be the go-to answer of a lot of Zergs, but there's definitely a little bit of room there for variety as well. MaNa, though, not even putting up the force field there, trying to prevent these units. Instead, he's going to do a bit of a push here, and Zerg is already responding with 13 roaches right now on that production tab. MaNa going for a big gateway-based push. Keep in mind, though, compared to what he did in the previous game, this is by no means an all-in. Instead, he's just simply transitioning and buying time here for that third Nexus. Ravages and Roaches, though, are going to be a pretty tough army here to beat. MaNa did indeed decide to not go for any of those higher tech units just yet. We don't see any Archons, we don't see any Immortals, we don't see any Stargate units. Instead, he's going to try and see if he can potentially deny this fourth base here from finishing up. And if he sees some force fields, I think there is going to be a chance for that. Great move there by the Protoss player. I don't know if he wants to commit there in the main base, though. It does look like he's going to cancel the shade right there, just barely in the nick of time. Once again, resetting up these force fields. Eventually, though, Zerg is going to be able to break through. More and more reinforcements are currently coming in, and here we go. The amount of roaches right now is getting a little bit out of hand. Warp Prism will indeed be killed here, just barely in the nick of time as well. Once again, though, Adepts are trying to shade forward here. A lot of Stalkers are still available. Adepts will be able to shade into that main base, but for now, the fourth base here for the Zerg player will stay alive. Blink just about to finish up, +2 melee also being researched here for the Protoss player. And while Zerg is finally done right now with Glial Reconstitution, so Roach Speed is indeed available right now, Protoss ended up getting quite a bit of value out of that unit composition, but I think that Zerg just barely came out ahead just because that fourth base is still up and running. I think if Bly would have actually target fired one, or if MaNa rather would have target fired down that base, I would have to give the advantage right there to the Zerg player, or to the Protoss player rather, but the Zerg player right now is actually trying to do a little bit of a push here. Warp Prism still moving out on the map. Handful of Adepts in there. Definitely nicely done. He's going to be able to deal some damage with that. Force Fields once again preventing a lot of these units. But now Roaches are also dropping off here to watch the golden base of the Zerg player. Or of the Protoss player. And this is actually the part of the map that the Protoss was previously, you know, defending quite a little bit earlier on into the game. And that's still the same Dropper Lord as well. The one that was actually used earlier on. Right now, though, indeed, forced Stalker Warpins here for the Protoss as well. And while apparently the majority of the Zerg army has indeed returned back home, MaNa and Bly are just simply starting to do a little bit of damage to each other. 8 by 8 drones and probes fall in just a matter of seconds. And while apparently one of these roaches did get biled there as well, I think that MaNa will be forced to return home, but not without picking up another drone or two. Ooh, actually, he's going to be able to get like 3 or 4 more there. Nicely done. Warp Prism running so low on HP. Queen in the main base, however, I think that this one indeed will be able to pick it up. And apparently there's water right over there. Are we on a bit of like an oceanic map? I guess we're on the boardwalks, eh? Anyway, we got different like depths of water. Look, we got like shallow water. We got little fishes over here as well in a pond. And then apparently we have like a lake right next to it as well with more and more fishes. Although those fishes are just barely a little bit too deep. I cannot zoom in on them. That's unfortunate. Anyway, so far though, it's an eye for an eye, right? It's an eye for an eye. Neither player really taking any kind of crucial advantages just yet. For the first time in the series though, we do see Bly now transitioning towards that Lurker Den. I guess this may be a response to the lack of Archons and Immortals here in the earlier part of the game, but MaNa is already getting quite a few of those right now at this point. He's even transitioning right now towards the robotics facility, or the robotics bay rather. So he's going to be able to produce out of that robotics facility, of course, either... Ooh, here we go. Big push though. Hold that thought for just a second, because apparently the Force fields are absolutely in point. Splitting off so many of those units, almost forced to bile his own army, but Protoss still has got a massive force, and this is definitely an overextension right here by the Zerg player. Those force fields were on point, just simply slicing off part of that Zerg army continuously. But what I was gonna try and say is that this indeed opens up the possibility for both Colossus, but I love to see this. This is something that Showtime has been doing a lot. Instead, we see the transition towards the Disruptors. I don't think that MaNa even knows right now about the Lurker Den. Although, maybe the lack of a hive earlier may have given that away. Like, he may have just simply realized that there was a good chance that we would be seeing a switch from the Zerg here towards the Lurkers. Either way, I think that Protoss going for the Disruptors right now is really smart against the Lurker-based army, just because Lurkers absolutely get shredded by those units if they get microed correctly. And right now, the War Prism with the Disruptors can become really scary. One thing to keep in mind, of course, is that there are no High Templar with this force here for the Protoss. And while he's currently selecting and saturating that 4th Nexus right now, still building up a lot of additional probes, he's also going for a bit of a push here across the map. Zerg currently doesn't exactly know what is going on. Even this treasure chest, apparently, will not quite be enough. But I think that both of these players, I mean, they're in for a bit of a surprise, because they are going to be facing off here in the center of the map, as both of them will indeed be engaging against each other. Here we go, though. Nice run forward there, splitting off a handful of these Zerglings. Of course, Disruptors right now detonate right when they get in first contact, rather than what they used to be in the past, where they would just simply explode after a couple of seconds. Right now, they detonate on first contact with any unit whatsoever, so that means that Bly is going to be able to micro against these units quite a little bit easier as well. They're not quite as game ending as they once were once upon a time, but apparently right now we are in a bit of a scenario where Bly is going to try and go for a bit of a counter attack here towards that 3rd base here of the Protoss player as well. Lurkers right now are out, however. We do see, once again, a bunch of these Disruptors trying to use their abilities, but they're actually more or less, like, blowing up a lot of the own Protoss units. Zerg is trying to push forward right there, and these Zerglings are providing a ton of value. Hive is right now done. Great Aspire will be able to get morphed in here in just a second if Bly decides to make that move. But MaNa is gonna... It looks like he's gonna continue the aggression, but this line of Lurkers, though, there is absolutely no way the Protoss can push in there with his ground-based force. Continued harassment right now, though, by the Zerg player as well. Trying to run by with all of these links, but the shield batteries and the warpins have been a little bit too good. This can really go either way at this point. MaNa, however, having a couple of these observers right now in surveillance mode as well, just simply gets a bunch of additional vision. But at this point, there are 4 bases taken here for the Protoss player. Great Aspire is coming in here for the Zerg. I think that Bly probably wants to sit back, but this is still a menacing army, though. We do not even see the Advanced Talons upgrade here coming in for Bly. It used to be called Digging Claws. It recently was renamed to now Advanced Talons. I don't really know exactly why either. But regardless, though, here we go. Disruptors are going to start moving in. One of those units will end up falling in just a matter of seconds. And ooh, massive detonations right there. Picking up so many of those Zerg units in just a matter of seconds. And I think that indeed, Zerg is going to be forced to retreat. Or at the very least, reposition all of these Lurkers. This observer needs to be killed here very soon, but once again, though, the Disruptors are being shot forward, zoning away a lot of these units. Now, of course, they are going to be on a countdown, or a cooldown for quite a little bit of time. A lot of supply right now is caught up in a bunch of these Corruptors that aren't really achieving anything. Once again, though, great detonations there on all of those Disruptors, and here we go, boom! Massive connection there. Lurkers going down in just a matter of seconds. 9 Broodlords are currently being morphed in, but this reminds me a lot of game number 1. MaNa is currently trying to push forward. He must realize what's going on. Instead of going for the 4th base here, or the 5th base rather, of the Zerg, he's trying to see if he can potentially close out this game right here, right now, and blink forward once again underneath all of those Broodlords. MaNa is trying to snipe down all of those units before they can even come out. Once again, blink was off cooldown. He's gonna be able to pick them off one by one, and I think that MaNa may have done it in a beautiful game number 3 here, playing it slow and steady, because apparently that wins the race. And MaNa shuts down all of those Zerg units in just a matter of seconds. Bly is forced to GG out, and MaNa ends up winning 2-1 in this best of 3 series. What an awesome set of games. I hope you enjoyed watching that as well. If you are new to the channel and you haven't already, You know what to do, right? Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below so you get a notification as soon as I upload the next videos. And in case you're unfamiliar, I upload pretty much every single day. But for now, though, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? Special shout out to all of the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. But I will see you in the next one.